The next chapter in your syllabus is Cellular Respiration. 5.1 Importance of energy. So these are the two learning outcomes. State the need for energy in living organism, and then secondly explain ATP as the main source of chemical energy in living organism. First, we need to define what is meant by cellular respiration. So cellular respiration is a process occur in a cell that break down complex organic molecule into simple molecule. So it's a type of catabolic reaction which releases energy. So in this definition, the term complex organic molecule refer to molecules such as glucose. So basically, this means that during cellular respiration, glucose will be break down into smaller or simpler molecules where during the process, energy will be released. So here in the diagram, we can see the general chemical reaction to represent the process of cellular respiration that involve glucose. So in this chemical reaction, one molecule of glucose will react with 6 molecules of oxygen and produce 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water and energy in the form of ATP. So daripada chemical reaction ni kita nampak apabila glucose kena breakdown, dia perlukan oksigen. At the same time, CO2 dan juga water akan kena produce. The main product yang kita nak adalah ATP. So inilah energy yang kita nak, yang kita nampak daripada definition tadi. So during cellular respiration, when we break down the complex organic molecule, for example glucose, we will get energy in the form of ATP. So glucose is the major source of energy for cellular respiration, tetapi ada juga other sources of energy iaitu from fat and protein. So why does living organism needs energy? There are many reasons. So here we have 3 main reasons. The first one is for mechanical work, for example for movement, where energy is used for muscle contraction. So in order for organisms to move, the muscle need to contract. So the muscle contraction will require energy in the form of ATP. The second example is for transportation. For example, pumping of substances across the membrane. So belajar ni dalam chapter 2 sem lepas. To transport substances across the membrane, especially involving active transport, we need energy in the form of ATP. So the next one is for chemical work. So chemical work kat sini merujuk kepada metabolic reaction yang belajar dalam chapter lepas, iaitu chapter biocatalysis. Iaitu for a chemical reaction to occur, we need to give the reactant a certain amount of energy that we call activation energy. So without the activation energy, the chemical reaction will not occur. So this is especially true for all endergonic reaction, where without adding energy, the chemical reaction will not occur spontaneously. So an example for the reaction is protein synthesis as well as photosynthesis. Next, explain ATP as the main source of chemical energy. So, tadi kita dah tengok the main source of chemical energy in most living organism adalah glucose, iaitu simple sugar. Tetapi most organism, kita punya biological processes tak boleh guna energy yang disimpan di dalam sugar. That's why we need a process iaitu cellular respiration untuk tukarkan chemical energy dalam glucose tadi kepada another form of chemical energy iaitu ATP. So ATP adalah satu bentuk chemical energy yang most biological organism can use for its cellular processes. Kalau tak ada ATP, cellular processes dalam organism itu tidak boleh berlaku dan organism itu akan mati sebab tak ada tenaga walaupun dia ada glucose. So what is ATP? So ATP is a form of nucleotide with unstable phosphate bond. So the name ATP adalah merujuk kepada adenosine triphosphate. So in the name ada perkataan tri, iaitu tri ni maksudnya 3. So ada 3 phosphate group yang attached to one adenosine molecule. Sebab tu singkatan dia ATP. So adenosine part of the name includes ribose sugar and nitrogenous base adenine. So ribose sugar campur adenine itu adalah adenosine. And then when the adenosine attached to 3 phosphate group, jadilah adenosine triphosphate ATP. So dalam gambar ni kita nampak, so ada adenine yang attached to the ribose sugar, and then the ribose sugar is attached to 3 phosphate group. Sebab tu dia triphosphate. So the whole molecule kita panggil sebagai ATP, or full name dia adalah adenosine triphosphate. Okay, next, once the energy in the glucose has been converted into ATP energy, so the cell in our body or in any biological organism can get the energy by breaking the bonds. So ATP will be reduced into ADP ataupun adenosine diphosphate when one phosphate group has been removed by breaking one of the phosphate bond. So chemical energy itu sebenarnya disimpan dalam bentuk phosphate bond. Okay, so di antara ribose dengan the first phosphate group ada bond dia, phosphate bond dia. So bond yang pertama ni contain little energy. The second bond antara phosphate yang pertama dengan phosphate yang kedua contain a little bit more of energy. And then the last phosphate bond yang ketiga ni antara phosphate nombor 2 dengan phosphate nombor 3. So ni yang contain a lot of energy. That's why nanti kita akan nampak in most biological processes, untuk get the energy from ATP, it only involve breaking of this third bond. Bond yang ketiga ni saja yang akan kena break dan dia akan release a lot of energy. So the main point is, the energy in the ATP is stored in the form of the bonds between the phosphate group. So dalam kata lain, semasa cellular respiration, energi yang kita dapat daripada breaking down of glucose tadi akan disimpan di dalam bond-bond ini. And to get access to the energy, we need to break the bonds, especially this third bond. So apabila kita remove satu phosphate group ini, hasilnya kita akan dapat adenosine yang cuma ada 2 phosphate group. Okay, that's why kita panggil dia sebagai ADP. So when energy is needed, ATP will be hydrolyzed. During hydrolysis, a molecule of water will be used to break down ATP into adenosine diphosphate. Ada 2 phosphate because the third phosphate has been removed, and then the removal of the third phosphate akan release energy. So ni adalah chemical reaction apabila kita nak remove energy, apabila kita nak guna energy yang kita sudah simpan dalam bentuk ATP tadi. And then the energy can be transferred to cell, can be used by the cell to perform any kind of metabolic reaction. Next, the ATP can be resynthesized from ADP. So kita boleh sintesis balik ATP tadi daripada ADP by using energy released from cellular respiration. So that's why we need cellular respiration. So during cellular respiration, iaitu breaking down of complex molecule, for example glucose tadi, akan releases the energy, and the energy will be used untuk resynthesize ATP dengan menggunakan ADP dan juga another phosphate. So basically kita nak reattach the phosphate kepada ADP to reform ATP. So ini basically apa yang kita nak untuk berlaku semasa cellular respiration. So the process of reattaching untuk melekatkan balik fosfat kepada ADP, itulah kita panggil sebagai phosphorylation. So during cellular respiration, kita akan nampak ada banyak step di mana phosphorylation akan berlaku, iaitu melibatkan kita akan attachkan fosfat kembali kepada ADP untuk create ATP dan juga byproduct dia adalah water. So for this process to occur, we need energy. So energy inilah yang kita perlu dapatkan daripada breaking down of the complex organic molecules such as breaking down of glucose. So we can get the energy from breaking down of glucose during cellular respiration. So itu temanya untuk chapter ini, kita nak createkan ATP dengan menggunakan energy yang release apabila kita break glucose semasa proses cellular respiration. So next, 5.2 aerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration merujuk kepada type of cellular respiration. So ada lagi type yang lain seperti anaerobic respiration dan juga fermentation. Tapi awak hanya belajar untuk aerobic respiration saja. So anaerobic dan juga fermentation kita tak belajar. So first awak kena boleh define what is meant by aerobic respiration and then describe briefly the two steps of ATP production during aerobic respiration, iaitu substrate level phosphorylation dan juga oxidative phosphorylation. So there are two main mechanisms of how ATP can be produced semasa proses aerobic respiration. First one is ikut proses yang kita panggil sebagai substrate level phosphorylation. Second one is oxidative phosphorylation. Next, describe the aerobic respiration that involve three stages, iaitu glycolysis, Krebs cycle dan juga electron transport chain. Lastly, state the production of ATP, NADH, FADH2 for each stage of the aerobic respiration. So semasa 3 stages of aerobic ni berlaku, akan ada production of ATP, NADH dan juga FADH2. So awak kena boleh state production of these 3 molecules semasa setiap stages of the aerobic respiration. First, what is meant by aerobic respiration? So aerobic respiration bermaksud a complete oxidation of organic compound iaitu glucose to produce carbon dioxide, water and ATP. And this process occur in the presence of oxygen. Sebab tu kita panggil sebagai aerobic. Aerobic bermaksud in the presence of oxygen ataupun the process will occur if there is oxygen. So this is the chemical reaction of aerobic respiration, sama je macam yang saya tunjuk pada awal-awal tadi, iaitu when glucose is being broken down, we will need oxygen and then the product is CO2, water dan juga ATP. So by having to use oxygen in the chemical reaction, sebab tu kita panggil dia sebagai aerobic respiration. So during aerobic respiration, glucose will be oxidized to form CO2 and then oxygen will be reduced to form water. Next, as mentioned earlier, there are 3 main stages of aerobic respiration. The first one is glycolysis that occur inside the cytosol or inside the cytoplasm. Secondly, Krebs cycle which occur inside the matrix of the mitochondria. And then finally, oxidative phosphorylation. So for oxidative phosphorylation, actually dia ada 2 lagi processes di dalam dia, iaitu electron transport chain and chemiosmosis. So for the oxidative phosphorylation, it will occur at the inner membrane of mitochondria. So ingat balik structure of mitochondria, iaitu organel yang penting sebagai site of cellular respiration. So mitochondria mesti ada double membrane, outer dan juga inner membrane. So the oxidative phosphorylation akan berlaku dekat inner membrane of the mitochondria. Krebs cycle pula berlaku dekat matrix of the mitochondria. Glycolysis ni yang berlaku di dalam cytoplasm ataupun cytosol. So ni adalah gambaran proses overall cellular respiration, iaitu aerobic respiration. Glycolysis akan berlaku inside the cytoplasm and then the Krebs cycle will occur inside the matrix of mitochondrion, while the oxidative phosphorylation that involve electron transport chain will occur on the inner membrane of the mitochondria ataupun cristae. Generally, during glycolysis, we can get 2 ATP molecule by substrate level phosphorylation. Sama juga during Krebs cycle, another 2 ATP also by substrate level phosphorylation. Next, in oxidative phosphorylation, we can get a total of 34 ATP molecules. So, jumlah ATP ni awak kena boleh kira based on setiap satu molekul of glucose yang kena oxidize semasa the whole process of aerobic respiration. So, the entire process is aerobic respiration. Di dalamnya ada 3 lagi processes yang berbeza. Okay, next, terminologis yang penting untuk chapter ni adalah oxidation refer to loss of electron, reduction when there is gain of electron, decarboxylation when there is removal of carbon dioxide, phosphorylation pula adalah addition of phosphate group to a molecule, especially ADP molecule. So make sure term-term ni awak kena faham dahulu. Okay, next, as I mentioned earlier, there are 2 main type of chemical reaction that produces ATP. Iaitu, the first one is via substrate level phosphorylation, the second one is via oxidative phosphorylation. So, kita tengok dahulu substrate level phosphorylation. So, substrate level phosphorylation refer to the ATP production whereby formation of ATP by which enzyme transfer a phosphate group from intermediate substrate to ADP to form ATP. So basically nak kata enzim akan ambil phosphate group daripada substrate dan pergi letak phosphate group itu kepada ADP, so terhasillah ATP. Sebab tu nama dia substrate level. So kita boleh tengok kat sini, enzim akan ambil phosphate group yang didapat daripada substrate ini dan pergi letak dekat ADP untuk menghasilkan ATP. So itu one of the mechanism how ATP is being produced, iaitu by substrate level phosphorylation. So proses ini akan berlaku semasa glycolysis dan juga Krebs cycle. So during glycolysis and Krebs cycle, ATP can be produced via mengikut proses substrate level phosphorylation. The second type of ATP production is by oxidative phosphorylation. So during oxidative phosphorylation, it involves formation of ATP by using energy derived, diambil from redox reaction. Redox itu merujuk kepada reduction and oxidation reaction that occur during electron transport chain. So semasa proses electron transport chain akan ada proses redox, reduction dan juga oxidation yang akan menghasilkan energi. So energi itu kita akan guna untuk produce ATP. So itu cara kedua macam mana ATP can be produced, iaitu by oxidative phosphorylation. So referring back to the overall processes in aerobic respiration, so kat sini lah kita akan dapat tadi 2 ATP produced during glycolysis, another 2 ATP during Krebs cycle, and these 4 ATP in total is produced via substrate level phosphorylation. The other 34 ATP is produced via oxidative phosphorylation that includes electron transport chain and chemiosmosis.